The usual reminders about phones and cameras and all the rest. No apologies have been received. Members wish to?
Chair, can I apologise on behalf of Gordon Lyons, please?
Yes, of course. And may I, on behalf of the committee, welcome Paul Frew to his first meeting of the Committee of OFMDFM. Paul, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for your kind welcome.
Looking forward to working with you. Members, at 173 in your pack is an invitation to the Portraits and Stories exhibition called My Journey, My Voice. It's organised by Disability Action and the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists. Launched on Monday the 2nd of November in the Long Gallery. Could I ask members to respond directly if they wish to attend? A list of our current invitations is on page 176 of your packs. In the absence of comments or questions on the invitations, can I draw your attention to the draft minutes of our meeting of the 30th of September? They begin at page 178, and I ask, are members content to agree the draft minutes? Thank you. Last week, the committee requested staff prepare a timeline of interactions with the department on the matter of those victims who fall outside the scope of the historical institutional abuse inquiry. And members, that timeline is available to you in your pack, beginning at page 184. And it goes on for quite a number of pages. It begins with the 24th of October 2012, 3 years ago this month, when in our report we acknowledge that there are victims and survivors of abuse who fall outside the scope of the inquiry, and that we committed to engage further with OFMDFM on the issue. In May 2013, we were told that the ministers have appointed a senior civil servant to draw up a scoping report on the Magdalene laundries and similar institutions. Then, in October of 2013, we agreed to write to the department seeking further information on the scoping report. The committee also agreed to seek the latest view of the department in relation to victims and survivors who fell outside the remit of the inquiry. February 2014, we were told that the ministers were still giving serious consideration to the options laid out in the options paper. In June of 2014, we were told that ministers were still giving a serious consideration and that a briefing might actually be possible. DFM here at this committee said it might be possible to accede to our request for a briefing. September 14, still giving serious consideration to the first scoping exercise, and we were also told for the first time that a second scoping exercise had been commissioned. Then in this year, back in March, we issued an invite to give us an urgent oral briefing on the progress of the two scoping papers. The letter issued on the 20th of March in 2015. And then we skip forward to last month, September, and the cancellation of the briefing that we were scheduled to receive from the First Minister and Deputy First Minister, where we all agreed, given the health of the First Minister, we would agree to postpone. So in short, there is a very long and detailed timeline there, which is an evidence base, should we wish to take this matter forward. Would members care to comment on the timeline, first of all? Deputy Chair.
Thanks, Chair, and thank the officials for the work they've had to do to detail and chart such a lengthy timeline that shows in stark detail for how long we've been endeavouring to get an update on this particular important issue. I think there are it details that the last time the First and Deputy First Minister attended the committee was the 25th of June 2014, which is an extremely long time ago. My understanding is most of the other statutory committees on average have met with their relevant minister approximately 3 times in that same time period. There are a wide range of issues that I think would be useful to be able to speak with the First and Deputy First Minister on, but this in particular is well detailed by this timeline in terms of the specific information that we have sought to gain update on and have not been able to. And I think, given the previous advice that there is detail required in order to utilise statutory powers to call ministers for attendance to committees, I think this is useful evidence to do that.
Anyone else? Well, could I suggest that we proceed ticking all the boxes as we go, and that therefore that the next step might be to seek legal advice as to whether this is as solid an evidence base as on the face of it appears to be.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Next, members, outstanding correspondence. That's page 195. In the absence of comment on that, the summary sheet of correspondence received since the last committee meeting is at page 199. If members do not wish to raise any matters with regard to correspondence, we go to the draft forward work programme until October recess. That's at page 223. The briefing from Nilga and Solas on the refugee and asylum crisis has been provisionally scheduled for Wednesday the 21st, but I need to refer you members to correspondence from Nilga, which is entabled at page 5. It advises that the local government sector is at the formative stages of receiving Home Office, OFMDFM and DSD guidance in relation to regional planning, coordination and delivery of responses. Nilga, therefore, request that the briefing be deferred until the outcome of these briefings can be collated. So are members content to propose that briefing? Agreed. On a similar note, staff have been engaging with organisations in the voluntary and community sector to determine which organisations would be best placed to present to the committee on the issue. The organisations that have been suggested are the Law Centre, Nightgrass, the Refugee Forum and the Red Cross. And I'll just say that the Red Cross ended up as a recommendation following Chris Little recommending a specific minister who then passed us on and felt the Red Cross would be in a better position. So that was Jason...
Jasper Rutherford.
Jasper Rutherford.
I
and you're content?
agree with the suggestion.
Yeah, good. Okay. They're all available to attend on the 4th of November, and they're in a position to inform us of matters relating to health, education, integration, legal needs, accommodation, destitution, and refugee family reunion. In fact, the whole 9 yards of the issue. So are members content that we book them in for the 4th of November? Yeah.
Could I just ask them, I may have missed this and I apologise for missing the earlier part of the meeting. When we're doing those kind of meetings, those briefings, do we have any further, more substantive information from OFMDFM?
Well, I think that's a good point. It's worth writing
We're doing
because
this back to front.
we've had this announcement of the first tranche. So what are you suggesting that we...
Well, I mean, I'm not looking at this as a conflict, if you know what I mean, in terms of briefing, so just be useful to have a bit more flesh on the.
Well, we have written to the department asking for an update on where they are.
It'd be helpful if officials could be here when that briefing's on.
Agreed.
Well, the Dallo would normally be here, would they not?
Sorry, Chair, do you mean to respond to any?
Well, you know, because. Yeah.
I think we've asked when officials might be available to brief the committee, but there's been no responses yet.
All right, thank you.
Chair.
It would be better.
Chair.
Better if they were here before, but anyways.
Chair, I agree with Alec. I presume people are working to the assumption that officials aren't attending the committee, given that there was a non-attendance in relation to the programme for government issue. Can I check that, Chair, the committee wrote to OFMDFM on the 9th of September to seek an update from OFMDFM in relation to the issue, but I presume we haven't received a response to that request, despite statements provided by Deputy First Minister, I understand, in the Assembly in relation to the issue? No. Okay.
Is the Dallo not attending anymore?
It depends on how much specific departmental business is on, Chair, but they will listen in the department.
Right.
Sure, I'm just making a point really that, obviously the Deputy First Minister made some reference to it there in the chamber and answered the questions.
Yes.
And then we have a public outpouring, and then we have a number of organisations coming here to give us the benefit of their understanding of it. They're the same people who are talking to OFMDFM officials, thankfully, and that's good.
Yeah.
I think it'd be worth reminding OFMDFM, and it would be actually quite nice if we were able to come here and talk to us as a statutory committee.
Agreed.
Don't disagree. So you're suggesting we follow up the letter that we've not had a response to with another letter?
Yep.
Okay. All agreed?
Great.
Okay, thank you. So are we content with the proposed forward work programme as discussed? Right, members. Our briefing today is from representatives of the Victims and Survivors Service. The purpose is to receive an update following the implementation of the recommendations from the two independent reports, WKM Solutions and SIPFA. In terms of your papers, the clerk's brief is at page 226. The Victims and Survivors Service have provided us a briefing at page 228. The quarterly review of VSS by the Commission for Victims and Survivors, which is April to June of this year, is page 237. And the management statement and financial memorandum between VSS and the department begins at page 254. And just to note, members, we requested many months ago of the department whether we could have sight of the MSFM. And as far as I know, Clerk, we have yet to receive a response.
That's right, Chair.
We have not received a response, but it's been on the VSS website since 2014. Just to make that point on the record. So anyway, we welcome Oliver Wilkinson, who's Chair of the Victims and Survivors Service, and Margaret Bateson, the Interim Chief. First of all, Oliver, congratulations. I think last time, were you chair, or you were waiting for a board, or were you interim chair? I
was interim.
You were interim chair, so congratulations on
Thank you.
Your elevation to formal chair. I'll pass over for opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee. Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation to come before you. It's been about 6 months since we were last here. And we do appreciate the opportunity to update you on the work that we have been doing and to hear of any issues or concerns that may be around that would help us to take the service that we are providing forward. The paper that you have in your pack outlines in detail the work over the past 6 months, and I'm just going to touch on a few issues which are dealt with in much more detail within that paper. Since April, we have delivered support to more than 4,600 victims and survivors under our individual needs programme. That's approximately 500 more people than we were able to support last year. And we have continued to support the groups who are providing services out in the community by extending the letters of contract that they had last year through into this year. But just for your information, on a daily basis, we receive a large number of telephone calls and callers to the office. From we opened our individual needs programme, 275 people have dropped in on spec for assistance, and that's each week. And our staff were dealing with more than 1,100 telephone calls. And while that continues to place demands on our staff, we're still meeting the targets that have previously been set, which are of contact with people on the telephone within 24 hours and email contacts within 2 days. We also closely monitor any complaint that comes to the service. And we have a very inclusive view of what a complaint is. Really, anybody that's unhappy, we take it as a complaint. Now, the answer to the question might be a very simple answer, and then it's gone. But so that we're right on the ball, we take a very inclusive approach to what a complaint to our organisation is. We've had 10, and we compare that to 43 for the same period last year. That's very much down to our staff and the systems that we have developed, which we have mentioned in detail in the report to you, which have cut down on a lot of the issues that had previously been of concern. Another area I want to just touch on is the co-design, which is a programme which is being led by the department, the Commission and ourselves. And its purpose is to develop models of service delivery for victims and survivors which are fresh for today and better for tomorrow, and so that we're not just continuing to do the same old thing year on year. We have made big improvements on our management information system. And that has taken quite a bit of time and a lot of effort from our staff, but what that has meant is we're reducing any errors that we had in communication. That obviously led to complaints in the past. We're speeding up the process of payments that we're getting out to people. And in addition to that, we have a pilot project up and running at the moment in partnership with the Commission and the Department on personalised budgets and a caseworker approach. Margaret will cover that in much more detail for you if you wish to know more about that. Another big area is monitoring and evaluation. What is it that our groups are doing? Is it what is required in order to help people to move on from the position that they're currently in? We are really pleased to see that our groups are working with us to develop good monitoring and evaluation tools and are now using them. And we hope that the next time we're here, we'll be able to say much more about the actual quality of work that is being done out there. To conclude then, as a board, we're very pleased with the work that our staff have been doing. We're very positive about the partnerships that we have with the groups that work with us out there. We're delighted that a new commissioner has been appointed, and without the relationship that we have with the Commission and the department, we couldn't do what we are expected to do for on behalf of victims and survivors. We have a good foundation, as I said on the last occasion. We have moved on from that. We obviously have a great deal of work still ahead, but I think we're in the right position to do so. Thank you.
Okay, Oliver, thank you very much indeed. Could we start maybe with your position? Say you were interim last time you were with us, and practically on your own on the board, and that was a matter that the independent reviews touched on, that OFMDFM as a department should have made sure that there was a properly sized and resourced board at your disposal. Are you up to speed now in terms of membership and also skill sets?
Yes, I'm pleased to say we have 7 board members now, and that's fine. We have a good spread of people. The additional individuals came on board around April time, so they've really been learning the ropes over the past number of months. And in the summertime, you lose a little bit of time. But next month, and in fact later this month, we will as a board be sitting down to review our existing corporate plan and to begin to develop a new one. So we have a good board. We are up. We know what it is we need to now do, and we feel we have enough people to set about the task of doing that.
CIPFA recommended a qualified accountant on the board. Have you managed that?
No, but we do. Perhaps Margaret, you could cover that.
SIPFA recommended a qualified accountant in terms of the Audit and Risk Committee for the board member to sit in it. At the minute, we have an independent chair of the Audit and Risk Committee who is not a member of the board, with financial experience but not a qualified accountant. So that's the one matter that's still outstanding in terms of the recommendations.
Okay, but you've kind of got a temporary fix
Yep.
in place. Okay, Margaret, from your point of view, to have basically a fully functional board now in place, what difference does it make to your ability to do your job?
We now have a fully functioning board. We still obviously have an interim SMT. I'm currently interim CEO, and as the committee are aware, there hasn't been an SMT in place for the last 12 months. Just in the last few weeks, I've brought in some SMT support. It's a 6-month basis, and that's really to provide support with the new board to outline the longer term strategy of the organisation in terms of looking again at our corporate and business plan and our service delivery models going forward.
How long have you been interim chief exec?
Since August 2014, so just over a year.
Oliver, are there any plans to address that?
We're in the middle of that process at the moment. The specifics of the post have obviously changed from we as a board have begun to look at what we require for the future. So we're negotiating that at the moment with the department. I would expect within the next few weeks to have all of the questions that we have posed answered, and I would expect that we would be advertising that post probably, I would like to think, within the next 4 weeks.
You've given us an assessment, a positive one, of your relationship with the Commission for Victims and Survivors. What about your relationship with the department?
Actually, I think it's a very good relationship. We have come from a difficult position. We've had to just knuckle down and work together. Coming from where we've all been, we know that we can't possibly allow things to slip in the direction that they once were. So we're committed, and we get a real sense that they're committed to improving services to victims and survivors, which is really what we all want. The new commissioner is only just in post, but we've had constructive meetings with the commissioner and look forward to continuing with that.
Does she have new ideas?
What I get is that the work that we have been doing at the moment with the department, and in particular with McClure Waters, McClure Waters, is that right? Who have, in a sense, set out a path indicating the direction we should be going in. That doesn't conflict with what she has been saying. So I think we're on the same page, but it's been difficult without a commissioner. We're looking forward to seeing things significantly improve.
Let's turn to the all-important funding. I know that the last financial year was extremely challenging for you because of the shifting financial sands. Margaret, you seemed very pleased that there was a solid opening baseline. How has that gone for you since March?
This is the first year that the service has had an opening position at the start of the financial year. So I think for us, it's going to be a very interesting year. It's the first year that you'll see actually when the peaks and troughs of service are. It's going to really help us in terms of resources going forward, because in theory, this should be a blueprint year in terms of how things should work. In terms of allocating the budget, we have maintained the victim support programme at just over 6 million, 6.3 million. And really that meant that all of the groups that we were contracted with last financial year, we extended that funding one further year. And then if you remember, there were a small number of voluntary and community groups where there was no funding available last year, and we've also offered them a letter of offer for this year. So we're supporting 5 further organisations from that list. But more importantly, in terms of the individual needs programme, it's meant that we can increase the funding allocation to it to 4.8 million this year. Already we've supported just under 500 new individuals compared to last year, with a small number still undergoing assessment at this point in time. So we would be pretty hopeful that any new people coming forward this year, we will be able to offer support to based on the existing eligibility criteria. If those volumes start to increase, it will be determined on us securing additional funding from October monitoring as well. We have made a bid for just over 100,000 to make sure that if people continue to come through at the same speed as they have to date, that we can keep that programme open.
Right, I'll let Andy Allen come in here because I think he has an interest in monitoring.
Yeah, Margaret, I'm aware you made a bid in June for additional funds, and that obviously hasn't been successful because we haven't had a June monitoring round. What is the magnitude of people that is affected by that?
There are just under 200 individuals currently undergoing assessment. That doesn't mean 200 individuals waiting support. We do have eligibility criteria that we need to work through. We made a bid for funding of just over 200,000 in June, and that was unsuccessful. Since then, we've moved offices and saved money in doing so, and we've also been able to reallocate funding from some other corporate headings into the individual needs programme. So at this point in time, the shortfall is about 100,000 estimated for the remainder of the year.
Okay, thank you.
So you've allocated, Margaret, 11.1?
Allocated 6.3 million to the victim support programme, 4.8 million to the individual needs programme, 1.8 million for our corporate costs, which compares to 2.1 million last year. And then there's just under 300,000, which is really a one-off budget allocation this year, and that's for the pilots and the co-design work, improving our management information systems, monitoring evaluation, once-off upfront costs.
Right, so that's the full 13.245 accounted
The full 13.2 is allocated with the exception of a small number of individuals.
Right. Significant saving in the move to Twelford Street, yeah?
Yeah.
How much?
Over 100,000 per annum. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And what about accessibility? Is it any issues with it?
No, at the start we moved in the 12th of June. It is a communal building, so we have a communal entrance area. But by August we had the fully functioning disability access doors. So a few issues in the first few weeks. With the front entrance, but now fully accessible, much greater on-street parking than we would have had in Millennium House. So the feedback to date has only been positive from victims and survivors themselves and from the organisations we work with.
And Chair, we did speak to the forum before our move, right, and asked what did they need by way of access to the services that we were providing. They weren't particularly comfortable with our last property, but we think most of those issues have been addressed to their satisfaction. But it wasn't that we just went out and picked somewhere. We did ask, and we did go on the advice that they were giving us.
Understood. Well, the other question is about staff. Now, you mentioned the lack of an SMT, but previously, there'd been issues with sort of temporary staff, agency staff. Has that washed through? Have you now got like a solid team?
It has. We currently have 25 permanent staff and 5 agency staff, but 5 agency staff that make sense. We've a SMT support in for 6 months until we see what the longer term service delivery model is. We've a MIS officer in for a further 6 months doing a ferry piece of project work on our MIS systems, and we have 3 then admin officers who support different areas at peak times. The point being, I think we'll always use temporary staff at different parts of the year, but 25 solid permanent staff.
Yes, as you were saying earlier, that this year with the solid finances, you'll see where the real peaks and troughs are, and that will help you plan. Okay, Chris Hazard.
Thanks, sir, and thanks very much for the presentation. But can I ask maybe first about co-design? I think it's a great initiative. What areas are yet to be worked out? What's the areas of concern or, I suppose, debate whenever you do discuss this? And when can we expect firm proposals going forward?
The co-design came around really historically in terms of the context. The Commission carried out an independent assessment of the service back in 2014 and made a number of recommendations, and they were resolved and implemented with the exception of a number relating to the assessment of need, so the assessment of individuals, and the other area was monitor and evaluation. And so those two areas, along with a piece of research that the Commission for Victims and Survivors did, were then rolled into the co-design process. So there's an action plan and area of work. In terms of when things will be finished, some things already are and other things are longer term by their nature. So we're looking at the Victim Support Programme, the Individual Needs Programme, Peace 4 Programme that's coming down the road, and there's really 7 key areas of work that we're looking at, and I'll maybe name what the 7 are if you want. I'm not about to go into detail in 7 key areas, but one's monitor and evaluation. We have been working in conjunction with the talk and therapy hubs within Belfast and wider across the region in terms of monitor and evaluation of health and wellbeing areas and looking at evidence-based approach to what we're doing. And we've been working with the groups that we fund in doing that to make sure we're not giving more bureaucracy and paperwork. We're using existing systems that are out there. So we expect to start seeing some information and reporting from that starting from this month onwards. So the last 6 months has been very much about talking to people, agreeing the frameworks, and then hands-on training starts in November as in terms of actually how the systems work. And there's a training programme in place then from November to March. Our management information systems, I think in the update report, we've probably went into detail on that, so that's the second area. Third area is evidence-based practice. So in combination with the monitor and evaluation systems, we've also developed a workforce training and development plan for the sector. And that, again, has been rolled out since March of this year until March 2016. Another key area is partnership and collaboration. And I think that's really an overarching theme in everything that we're doing. And the other 3 that are more longer term in terms of how the co-design process over the next 6 months really needs to get into the strategic allocation of funding rather than a grant-led process, long-term sustainability and eligibility criteria. So 3 quite complex and difficult areas in the longer term.
Okay. The eligibility criteria, will this look at a particular bugbear of myself is the eligibility of siblings to be able to access support services. Currently siblings are not eligible. I think that's awful. I think if most people in the public knew that, I think they'd be shocked that siblings of those killed as a result of the conflict are not eligible for support. Is this going to be the way it's going to continue? Is this a policy that is up for debate, is up for change?
Well, the Victims and Survivors Service are the service delivery body. In 2012, the Commission for Victims and Survivors carried out a comprehensive needs assessment, and then following that process, it was determined that siblings were not eligible for direct support through the Individual Needs Programme. But just for full clarification, to be clear, siblings can access support through any of our funded organisations in terms of social support and health and wellbeing activities.
Siblings, of course, as far as I'm aware, are redefining themselves as psychologically injured. This is inflating statistics, I presume, and a lot of those coming forward as psychologically injured are indeed siblings. Is that something that you've found? Is this something that we need to deal with?
It is. The last co-design meeting was specifically on eligibility with the Department and the Commission, where we outlined what the current eligibility is per each of the schemes and what the issues and challenges were, and that being one of them. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Just finally, and I think it's actually linked to the sibling thing, is the need for a gender lens when we approach all of these services. I think one of the big things when you consider that most of those killed were young men, that very often siblings tend to be sisters as well as anything else. But to what extent are any services or all this process going through a gender lens? Do we have that perspective within the VSS?
At the minute, none of the services are going through a gender lens in any sort of systemic matter. But I have been having discussions just very recently over the last sort of 2 to 4 weeks with other organisations who are doing it. And a paper is going to be presented to our board on the 20th or 21st of October, the next board meeting, outlining a proposal in terms of how we can improve that and some practical things that we could do in the short term to address that.
That's very welcome indeed. Thanks, Chair.
You're welcome. Stephen Mitry.
Thank you, Chair. And can I congratulate you folk on coming here today and how you've turned this organisation around. So refreshing to have you here and discuss the issues as opposed to the many meetings we had over the past 2-3 years with the VSS. Can I just ask you, in relation to the pilot project, is there anything coming through from that, any indications as to how it's going, or is it something that could be further rolled out?
Probably December time will be when we have really good, robust outcome information. But in terms of how it's rolling out, it started in July. There are 2 caseworkers within the Victims and Survivors Service, and there are 14 caseworkers out there within the organisations. So the organisations were asked to nominate existing members of staff with specific skills and competencies to carry out that role. Just over 200 individuals have came forward as wanting to participate in the pilot. And what the pilot does is it doesn't provide any additional funding to the individual this year, but it says rather than be prescriptive in terms of what you can spend that money on, to have a much fuller discussion with the caseworker in terms of what outcomes could be improved. So, for example, increased mobility or decreased social isolation, focusing on the improvement in that person's life rather than focusing on what the money's being spent on. So the caseworkers are really just at the start of that. The Commission for Victims and Survivors will be evaluating it independently to us, and that evaluation is starting this month with an expectation to be an interim report within the next sort of 4 weeks, and then a fuller report in December, just around Christmas time.
Look forward to that. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, can I say that on this, this is a very exciting development. It's one in which, rather than we as a group or others standing on the outside and saying to people, this is what we think is good for you, we're saying to individuals, what would make a difference? What outcome are you looking for that we could assist you with? Now, that's really exciting, and we could get some very creative ideas come out of that. But equally, there are risks. And I'm raising it simply because someone can come up with a proposal to us, which is very interesting, makes perfect sense, but in the public eye might cause a few questions to be asked. I'm mentioning it to you just so that you're aware. But we think we're at a stage where we need to take risks with people to help them to move from where they are to a better place in their lives, rather than to maintain them perhaps where they've been for a number of years, to help people to move on. So we're encouraging risk, but we're not being foolish about it, because we do know that we've got to be careful with public money.
Well, personally, wearing the previous hat of being a commissioner, I really get it, Oliver, and I support it. Because I remember meeting, for example, a family, and they basically used an allotment as their way of de-stressing. Yep. Right, you cannot, I would suggest, you probably can't run a scheme for something like that, because you would be ridiculed publicly, and you might even find yourself trying to justify it in front of the Public Accounts Committee. But actually, what the family was doing was the equivalent of therapy, and it was coming in at a very reasonable rate to the public purse. So I think this idea of going out and asking and discovering what works for an individual or for a single family is personally, I think it's absolutely the way to go. Alex Maskey.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you both, and can I echo Stephen's remarks early on about the great work that's been done, and wish you well continuation of that work, and it's very good to hear. Could you maybe elaborate a wee bit on the Peace 4 programme? I mean, obviously yourselves are nominated as the lead partner, so could you maybe share a little bit more about the preparation of that, and is any of the difficulties at the moment holding any of that work up, the preparation for that, and consultation?
Piece 4, as you're probably aware, is quite recent for us as well, just in the last number of weeks. And we've been named as the lead partner. There's €17 million of funding assigned to us under the victims element of the Piece 4 programme, with the overarching theme that it will improve the health and well-being of victims and survivors. We're at the very, very start of the process, where there are some very broad indicative areas in terms of health and wellbeing caseworkers, in terms of health and wellbeing advocacy support, in terms of some research into those areas, and also some training and development of the workforce and a number of programmes to increase the resilience of victims and survivors. So in terms of those broad headings, it hasn't gone any further than that. We're just about to start consultation with our stakeholders. Our understanding is it's gone to the European Commission this week, and given we've been named as the lead partner, then we would need to apply to SEUPB for the funding, and that will obviously take probably another 6 to 12 months until we're actually in a place where we're actually implementing and getting the money out in the ground, which is good because it means we can plan in conjunction with what we're already doing in the co-design, and we can make sure then that the Piece 4 programme and the Victim Support programme going forward make sense. You know, they work together with each other, they complement each other. So we're really basically at step 1 at this stage with it.
Okay, in terms of just further from that, in terms of the, because if the programme is linked to the community and the voluntary sector, and obviously you go through the SEUPB, but that by its very nature to me would indicate then you'll have a potentially a new range of stakeholder organisations that want to engage with. So kind of work out how do you dovetail the current stakeholder engagement that you have with potentially a new one.
It is possible, but we have, as I've said before, an excellent network of organisations out there doing very good work. The true value of that will become more evident as the monitoring and evaluation kicks in. And while there may be additional groups who will appear, we obviously have an interest in adding additional support and resource to our current groups in order to enable them to do many of the things that that we are asking them to do, and we're going to be expecting more of that for the future. So it's an opportunity, I think it's a real opportunity for our groups to really establish themselves as high-class service providers within their local community, maybe even by extending their geographical boundary or service, the range of services that they provide. That's my primary interest. But of course, we have to be open to the possibility that there may be some additional groups who would appear.
In terms of what you're talking about there, Oliver, how many groups would you assess are still kind of solidly single identity and would be afraid, perhaps, of reaching out? And let me preface that by saying I acknowledge the 10-year strategy acknowledges the right of groups to be single identity, so I'm not criticising them, I'm just wondering how many are thinking to the future in terms of embracing the community and who is not.
Wouldn't have a number that would be single identity, and like you, we respect that. We know that sometimes it is difficult for a group to extend, but by the same token, we have to keep supporting, training, and then expecting more. So we would hopefully be a critical friend and encouraging groups to look beyond what might have been a boundary that they established a few years back. This might be an opportunity for them to do that. But in the end, you know the community as I do, and we've got to work with that.
Again, I would fear that perhaps at the end of the 10-year strategy, the next strategy will not give the same protections and acknowledgement to single identity because the direction of travel is other.
Possibly, but I would hope that we would be strong enough to make the case for those groups that should continue in that way, because it just is a reality that I think we will have to live with for a long time to come.
You share it. Deputy Chair Chris Little.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for your presentation today. I noted that you advised that you've been named as a lead partner in the proposed programme for victims and survivors under Peace 4, and that it's to be €17 million, and that it will look at a number of issues, including advocacy support. You're probably aware that HAS papers, Stormont House Agreement papers, propose what is akin to independent victims advocates. How would you see that fitting into that particular bid in terms of independence from VSS, and would it be similar to the caseworker approach that is currently being taken?
I think there's a direct link between Peace 4 and the role of the advocacy support. It's not envisaged that those staff would be employed and sit within the VSS. There are a lot of people who are doing that work very well already out there in the community, and we've been talking to them to try and better understand exactly what that role is, because it's important that we do define that role, and it's important that the people who undertake those roles have the skills that are necessary to undertake that role. So part of the programme is a training, an accredited, formalised type training programme for advocacy support workers, in addition to the recruitment of those workers. The pilot that's undergoing at the moment in terms of the caseworkers will also help feed into exactly what that means. I think the term has such a broad meaning. At the minute, we're trying to work with the department and the commission to determine exactly what that means.
I think it can be narrowed down. I think it would be a useful addition to create that more formal role to support victims and survivors as they need it to navigate the various different pathways and processes that they have to navigate, especially if we do manage to create additional pathways for victims and survivors to access justice, truth, information and services. And I think the caseworker approach is a useful addition as well. Wish you every success with those. Thank you.
So, just a couple more. In terms of the Commission, there was a recommendation that you collate and make available a reference guide to practitioners with details of services to groups. Is that in progress or done? Or?
It is. We've our website will be undertaking a revamp in the next few months. So we've just appointed, after an invitation to tender, someone to take that work forward. And in conjunction with that, there'll be an online portal as part of our website, because we're just aware if we start doing books, they become very outdated very quickly. So the idea is there'd be an online portal for anyone in the public, not just the caseworkers, to be able to go in and put in their postcodes and see what types of services, what types of activities are happening around them. So more of an interactive online guide that each of the caseworkers can.
Any idea how many victims and survivors use the internet? Amongst your registered?
Around 1,500 visits per month to the website, to our website. We've made quite a lot of improvements over the last 12 months, but most of our users are accessing it through mobile technology, and it's not great for that. So
okay.
we'll make it more user-friendly on mobile.
Any idea what percentage of victims and survivors who are registered with you are users of the internet, email addresses registered?
No, and I wouldn't want to even hazard a guess. Yeah.
Again, the Commission, in a quarterly report on yourselves, mentioned a judicial review on the financial assistance programme. What can you tell us about that?
The applicant has since withdrawn.
And finally, just a couple of things back on the department. When you briefed us last, you said the work plan for 15-16 was with the department for consideration. Have they agreed it, or is it?
the department have agreed it, and the Hawks, the Head of Civil Service Board, have agreed it, and it's just awaiting ministerial approval.
In October.
For us, it's business as usual. We operate as if it is approved.
And I mean, I'm not sure if you heard, I mentioned right at the beginning that we'd asked officials for sight of your MSFM, your Management Statement Financial Memorandum, and they were to get back to us. And we, since just by chance looking at your website, discovered it's been up for 11 months. Did you know we were looking for it? No. Fair enough. Well, listen, let me echo what others have said. A fantastic turnaround in the Victims and Survivors Service, and great credit to you both for the work you've done. And thank you very much for coming along today, and we look forward to meeting you again in the future, and wish you all the very best. Oliver, Margaret, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
I'll be quick.
So, members, any other business? If not, we will adjourn until next Wednesday at 2 o'clock here in room 30, although we may wish to convene a meeting on Monday just on those NIPSO amendments, but we will obviously contact everybody if that is the case and give as much warning as possible.
Committee room 30. This is the Northern Ireland